So, what is Ionic? Ionic is a free and open source framework for building mobile apps with HTML, Angular, TypeScript, and CSS. So, if you're a web developer and know how to build websites, you can use Ionic to build mobile apps for every major app store with the languages and tools you're familiar with. Ionic gives us a bunch of beautiful UI components that are frequently used in mobile apps, such as this list component that you see here. All these components are essentially Angular components. So they have selectors, and you can easily use them on your pages the same way you use any Angular components. And they look beautiful like this image right out of the box. Now, apart from these components, Ionic comes with over 70 plugins that give you access to native features such as GPS, camera, Bluetooth, device orientation, and so on. These plugins are built using a framework called Cordova, which used to be called PhoneGap. And this framework gives us access to native functionalities from JavaScript. So with Ionic, you essentially build a web app that has access to native features on a mobile device. We call this kind of app a hybrid app. Now, you can view this app in a browser on your machine, or you can put it in a native app on a mobile device. So with Ionic, you can generate a native iOS and Android app that includes a browser shell to host your web app. This browser shell does not have any UI like a typical browser. Its job is purely to host your web app. Now, a question that a lot of beginners ask is, when should we use Ionic? Or in other words, is it better to build a hybrid mobile app with Ionic or build it natively? The answer is, it depends. There are a few good things about Ionic. First is that you can build an app with the languages and tools you're already familiar with. So as long as you're comfortable with HTML, CSS, Angular, and TypeScript, you're good to go. You don't need to learn Objective-C or Java to build an iOS or Android app. Another benefit of using Ionic is that you can use one code base to build an app for different platforms. All these components and plugins that come with Ionic allow you to quickly build a real-world app, and this means increased productivity. You can get more done in less time. However, with Ionic, you don't get full control over how your app looks and behaves, because you're bound to the components and plugins that come with Ionic. In other words, you're going through an abstraction and are not directly using the native language and framework on each platform. So if you want to do a lot of customization, or the kind of UI you want to build cannot be implemented using standard Ionic components, you need to go down the native route. And of course, that comes with the complexity that you need to manage at least 2 or 3 different code bases in different languages and platforms. And this can get costly pretty quickly. In my experience, Ionic shines in startup companies with tight budget. So if you have an idea and want to turn that into a real working app for multiple platforms in the shortest possible time, I would say Ionic is a great choice. Once you have a fully working app, you can show it to a venture capitalist and get funds. And then you may decide to stick with Ionic or build separate native apps for each platform. Now, some interesting data for you. As you can see on ionicframework.com, at the time of recording this video, there are 3.1 million apps built with Ionic with 5 million developers and more than 100 meetup groups. So there is a pretty active and growing community behind Ionic, and I believe it's something that you as an Angular developer need to have in your toolset. So that's why I've dedicated a section to Ionic in this course. All right, that's enough introduction. Next, I'm going to show you how to build your first Ionic app.